NCBA's efforts in Washington, D.C. help to protect the business climate for cattlemen and women all across our country. Cattleman to Cattleman reporter Russell Nemitz caught up with Colin Woodall, the man responsible for leading the team in D.C. Russell?
Well, Kevin, as you are well aware, there is never a lack of policy issues affecting the U.S. beef cattle industry and those cattlewomen and cattlemen across this great country of ours. But luckily, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association is working hard on behalf of producers every single day on these policy issues back in Washington, D.C. And one of those gentlemen that's working hard on these policy issues is the NCBA Senior Vice President of Government Affairs, Colin Woodall. And Colin, there seems to be a change of attitude, if you will, from our nation's capital. Seems to me a lot of good things happening out there these days.
A lot of great things happening for us in the cattle industry right now with this new administration. It's amazing we have an administration that is reaching out to us. They want to understand what our issues are, and they're willing to address a lot of those issues. I think one of the best examples out there is what we have seen from the EPA and the new administrator, Scott Pruitt, in regards to rolling back the Waters of the United States rule, something that NCBA has spent years now trying to accomplish, and we're actually going to be able to make that happen. When you also look at what we're seeing at the Bureau of Land Management and being able to roll back the BLM 2.0 planning rule, another great example of things that have already happened in the short time this administration's been in place. So we're excited.
And it seems to me other key appointments out of that White House these days was the selection of Sonny Perdue as the new Agriculture Secretary, and he's bringing a whole new level of optimism to agriculture as a whole.
Oh, he is. You know, Secretary Perdue understands agriculture. He comes from agriculture, and we have enjoyed our interaction with him so far. I think one of the things that we've really been impressed by is the fact that he has spent a tremendous amount of time so far out in the countryside talking to producers. He wants to see what's really going on because he knows that agriculture in Georgia is not necessarily the same as agriculture in Montana, and he's trying to make sure that he really understands the regional differences so that way he can make choices that help all of us succeed. So we look forward to working with him for many years to come.
Now, I think we both would be kind of kidding ourselves if we were to tell each other that there's not still a few challenges out there, but there is, and there's always going to be. I mean, what are some of those challenges or issues that NCBA will be working on in the future now?
But we still have some environmental challenges. In particular, we are working right now with EPA to figure out how we prevent animal agriculture operations from being considered hazardous waste locations. And that is something because of a judicial decision last spring is going to potentially have a huge impact on us. Fortunately, as I mentioned, we have an EPA that's willing to work with us. We've got to try to find a way to overcome that because that is a significant issue for us right now. And also we've got to figure out how we address trade with Japan. By pulling out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, we lost our opportunity to take our tariff from 38.5% down to 9%, and this is in the country that is our #1 export market. So we are trying to figure out with the new U.S. Trade Representative and the administration what is it going to take to be able to put some sort of replacement agreement in trying to figure out how we actually get that better access into Japan at a lower tariff. So those are two challenges in particular. We still have to figure out how we move forward.
You know, Colin, you mentioned the Environmental Protection Agency, another issue that EPA has been working on for a lot of years that certainly has grabbed the attention of cattlemen and cattlewomen. WOTUS, or Waters of the U.S. rule.
Waters of the United States has been something that we have spent years working on right now. Basically, this was an expansion of jurisdiction to allow the EPA to regulate basically every body of water in this country. It was going to infringe upon the private property rights of every farmer and rancher in this country. We have been fighting this for several years now, and we, as I said, have an administrator who finally gets it, that this is going too far. In essence, it is a land grab, and the president signed an executive order instructing the administrator to start rolling back the Waters of the United States rule, and that's what he's doing. But that's not the end of the story. We have to remember that the Waters of the United States rule came about because of a question on the jurisdiction of where the government has opportunity to regulate and where they don't. That's still a question that's out there, but we're going to be able to define that jurisdiction here under Administrator Pruitt, and he understands the challenges that we as landowners have, and I think that he is going to help us put in place a definition that is friendly to landowners but still protects water.
NAFTA has been back in the agricultural headlines as well this spring and this summer. Let's talk about NAFTA and some of the latest details out of there, because NAFTA has been pretty good for the U.S. beef cattle industry.
NAFTA has been great for the U.S. beef cattle industry. We have a $1 billion market into Canada, and we have a $1 billion market into Mexico, and that's all because of the provisions in NAFTA. So we have to protect those provisions. The President has made the decision that he wants to renegotiate. He has instituted all of the processes and procedures to make that happen, and there are some things apparently that have to be addressed in other industries. We know that when it comes to the cattle industry, we need to protect our access, and we need to make sure that there aren't any unintended consequences of the renegotiation that impacts us. We have delivered that message. It has been received. They understand our request, and so we're just going to continue to watch this process to make sure that we maintain the access that we have to two great customers, and that's Canada and Mexico.
One more question, then we'll let you go. What about the Farm Bill? I mean, oftentimes we think about the Farm Bill just being for commodity producers, but the NCBA is also working hard to make sure the cattle industry is also represented in the new Farm Bill.
Absolutely. We benefit from the Farm Bill when you look at things such as the research title, when you look at our land grant university system and the agricultural research service and the economic research service. The work that they do, the work product that they provide has helped us as an industry just be better at our jobs at producing cattle and high quality beef. So we want to make sure that we protect the funding levels for that research. We also want to make sure that we protect the conservation programs. Programs like the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, EQIP, has been extremely beneficial for cattle producers across the country to implement different conservation practices that help address a lot of the environmental issues and regulations that we have seen out of EPA. But this Farm Bill in particular is one where we are asking for money to help us establish a vaccine bank to fight against foot and mouth disease. The current vaccine bank that we have is obsolete. We need something that is new, that is fully stocked to address all the strains of FMD, and that is our request right now to both the House and Senate Agriculture Committee to make sure they can deliver that to help protect our industry.
Hey, Colin, as always, we appreciate you for joining us on Cattlemen to Cattlemen today.
Hey, thank you, Russell.
All right. Again, Kevin, it's exciting to talk about all of the wins happening here of late for the U.S. beef cattle industry, and it's also reassuring to know that there are boots on the ground on behalf of both NCBA members and non-members working on behalf of the U.S. beef cattle industry every single day in Washington, D.C. With that, we'll go ahead and send it back to you.